Hey everybody, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate that. And today I have kind of a nerdy experiment. This is a pot I made. I really like this variation of color. It's called a blush. And I can tell you where that comes from. It comes from sodium that's in the firing process. Normally the sodium that I have comes from sheep dung that comes from the sheep that are herded by the Navajo. Not easy to get. Pretty sure you cannot buy that on Amazon. And I've looked for other ways to get that same thing to happen because Navajo sheep dung is not that easy. So I got thinking about it. I fired with charcoal. So what I did, I took some charcoal, and I don't know if you can see, but all this white stuff here, I sprayed the charcoal with a very high concentration of salt water, thinking that the sodium in the salt will maybe fume from that and give me the blush that I am looking for. Not sure if it'll work. On it, give it a try. So I have two pieces of pottery. They're both the same, both been slipped the same. One is going to get fired with the salt impregnated charcoal, the other with just plain old charcoal. See if there's a difference between the two. A good experimental process. So let's go outside and get this thing going. So here is the kiln setup. I have a couple of bricks here that separate the two sides, so they keep separated. On this side is the charcoal that was sprayed with salt water, so you can see it's kind of white and crystal-like. This is just regular charcoal. And then I have the little pieces of pottery here. This is unfired clay, and they're raised up on a couple of pieces of brick to get some air circulation. Then I will cover everything up with charcoal and get it lit. Okay, I've got charcoal on the top. Put some lighter fluid on this. Don't have to be overly careful with an experiment like this. Just get it started and see what happens. Should be pretty quick. I think I'll know in, definitely 2 hours whether it's done. I'll let you know. The fire's been going for about an hour and it's doing fine, but I did use my leaf blower to give it a little oomph. Needed some extra oxygen so it could get a little bit hotter, but I think it's doing okay now. I can see that the side with the salt on it is a little bit different. One, it's burning more slowly, and you can see the little white marks on some of the charcoal where the salt is. So possibly I didn't let it dry as much as it needed to, and so it's a little bit different than the other charcoal. Whether that makes a difference or not, I'm not sure. It's been several hours and they're still kind of hot, but let's take a look at it. It's kind of interesting. This is just regular charcoal over on this side. Obviously no sherds over the top. And this is the charcoal that was sprayed with salt water, which obviously looks very different. So I've not looked at the underside. So it's pretty clean. I really don't see any blushing here. And here the charcoal was sitting right on the top of it. So that's kind of what I would expect. Okay, let's see what we get over here. Okay, isn't that interesting? Look how much that blushed. Now this side was not protected, so that tells me that you probably want to protect your pot. That looks pretty permanent. But look at how hot, how different those are. So it tells me the salt does the trick. Well, the experiment worked, but the result was not perfect. It's not beautiful by any means. It's certainly not controlled. So I need to go to the next step, but I want to look at this just a little bit more closely. First of all, on this side, on the top side, the charcoal sat on it, and it really made a difference having the salt in it. And so I'm convinced that the salt on top of the pot is not going to help at all. It makes it all crusty and nasty. And so if I'm going to use salted charcoal, all of it needs to be below the pot itself, and then it will fume upward. And this looks kind of dirty here. And actually, there are two kinds of slip. and this slip worked better than the other. So I'm going to redo this. I'm going to try with these two slips, put the charcoal underneath, and maybe give it a little bit more room for air ventilation and see what kind of result I get. Okay, it is time for part 2 of this experiment. I made a little sample bowl. What I will do is take it outside and put it in the fire where I have salted charcoal just underneath to see if I can control the blushing. I also have 2 kinds of slip on this to see if that makes a difference, and some painting to see how that might affect the painting as well. So let's get outside and get this thing going. Okay, here is the plan. This is the salt impregnated charcoal. I think you might be able to see the little white dots on that. That's all salt. So it is just going on the bottom of the kiln. And I will put a grate on top of here. It's suspended on some bricks. Here is the little test pot. And then I'm just going to pile charcoal, regular charcoal, no salt, on top of that. What I want to do is make sure that I have plenty of good air circulation. So there are air gaps or hole gaps around in the kiln. Actually, all of these bricks really aren't necessary. I just don't want to move them. Okay, I think that is good enough. I just need it to get hot enough to be ceramic. So if it hits 700 Celsius, something like that, it'll be fine. Okay, hopefully within a couple of hours we'll have a pretty good idea what's going on here. I measured the temperature and it's between 700 and 740 Celsius. Not a real hot fire, but it's good enough for what I want to do. Well, this is the moment of truth. The fire was set a long time ago. Okay, the pot broke, that doesn't matter. It is interesting to see there's a fair amount of blushing on the bottom side. And the question is, what does it look like on the other side, and is it controlled? Okay, interesting. So I'm not sure why that broke. That really doesn't matter, but this is good blushing here. It's also interesting that the blush is quite a bit different from one of the slips to the other. This is blushed a lot more. I kind of like this a little bit better. So that's interesting to see. So another question here. Did all of the charcoal underneath burn out? And it did. So that was important. So spraying the salt on the charcoal, didn't have a lot. That seems to have worked. Let's take this inside and we'll talk about it a little bit more. This is an experiment that has generated a lot of really useful information to me. I wanted to say up front, check out the description. There is a scientific article about the blushing of Hopi pottery that was written by Wayne Keane and Rod Swenson. Really good. It's really been important to me. Now let me show you down below here what I came up with. The goal of this experiment was to see if charcoal, lump charcoal that was sprayed with a strong solution of salt would blush pottery. And indeed it does. This is the first experiment. There was no salted charcoal on this piece of pottery, but there was on this one. And it was kind of a little bit out of control, but now this got very orange and this started to turn black. Important lesson here is that if the salted charcoal touches the pottery, because this was unprotected, there were no sherds on it, it really just destroys the pottery, although some people may like that. So the next step was to put the salted charcoal just underneath the pottery, put regular charcoal on top, and that's what I did. And it turned out good, I think. What is interesting to me is that these two slips, they're both Hopi slips, but they blush differently. Now, this slip and this slip are the same. So this particular one will overblush more easily. This one is more forgiving. It turned quite orange. And in this case, I didn't use as much salted charcoal. And just so you know, this slip and this slip are the same. So without any salt, this is a whiter, maybe creamier kind of a color. So it's pretty attractive. They're both very usable. So what this tells me is that you can create a blush on your own pottery at home using salt water and charcoal, and that will work. And just fine-tuning that is maybe the trick. This stuff is notoriously a little bit fickle, but it has a whole lot of potential, because otherwise, if you want to do it in the totally traditional fashion, you need sheep dung from the Navajo, and that is not easy to get. Well, this is proof that the firing environment makes a big difference in the outcome of the pottery make, and also that experimentation can teach us things that are useful to us. So this has turned out great from my perspective, and hopefully this is something you might be able to use too. Let me know down in the comments, or just make a comment of one sort or another. I always respond to them. Thumbs up are great. Subscriptions are great. All of those things really make a difference. So until next time, this is Wes wishing you health, happiness, peace, and love. Take care. Bye-bye.